Joining us this morning, Titania Jordan.
Tatiana Jordan. Did I get the name right? Jordan?
Titania.
Titania. Okay. All right.
It's Titania Jordan.
Welcome to Connect, everyone. I'm Titania Jordan, and today I'm joined by the Walt Carter of Primary Capital Mortgage. He is both the CIO and CMO, so kind of a big deal, and you've had kind of a big day, and let's hear about it.
Well, today was very interesting. I'm not all that you mentioned, but I am a CIO and a CMO. But there's a lot of those CIOs and a lot of CMOs. Not too many of us that carry both titles. But the thing about today that's pretty exciting was, I just came with some of my team members from the Governor's Task Force on High Demand Career Initiatives for IT. Been part of that group now for about a year. I've actually had Don Barden from 3CI come over and explain some of the things that are going on that you guys are doing that are really innovative. One of the things that we're trying to get from these roundtables that we're doing with the task force is direct engagement with CIOs and senior executives from IT in the big companies here in Atlanta to try to make sure that we understand how to communicate to the education system and to the other suppliers of IT resources what our demand is. What are we looking for exactly? And so we actually had the first one of these on Monday of this week. We had 2 hours with executives from Fleet Corp, Coca-Cola, and Brambles. Today we had folks from GE, from Anthem, and also from ICE. And so we're really just probing in small groups of CIOs, what does the next 5 years look like? What are the things that you're going to be looking at? What are the things that we need to concentrate on from a supply side? We're going to write a white paper that's going to come out of the Governor's Task Force that's going to go over to the university system of Georgia. It's going to go over to the technical colleges and the community colleges, and we're going to try to help them help us better where they can't help us better, where they kind of flame out and run out of gas. We're going to go over with that same white paper to the economic development engine, and we're going to try to recruit companies to come into the Georgia marketplace that can help us resolve some of those gaps that are left. There's two really key components, I think, Titania, about the talent gap. It's not just the gap, it's the war. And so we've been writing about it. We've seen this tsunami of demand coming at us for years now. We see some of the challenges of grabbing kids from college. One of the most obvious challenges today, right now in June of 2017, right, we're in graduation month for the colleges and universities. Some of us are dads that have kids that are graduating right now. We're excited about them launching out into their new journey. But at the same time, one of the statistics that we saw just recently was there's 14,000 openings for just software developers / computer programmers in Georgia, in Atlanta, right now, here. Today.
Right now.
We just graduated, or will over the course of those matriculations in the last few weeks, about 4,000 kids across the state that will have the entry-level computer science degrees and software development chops. So that leaves 10,000 more that we've got to go find somewhere.
Wow.
So that's the gap. Now let's talk about the war. The war is, I got to go raid to fill my slots with the right people, and so where am I going to get that talent? I'm going to have to go call on people who are already at work. I'm going to have to offer them a little extra, more than what they're making today, or some incentives that they're not currently getting, in order to get them to move off of that current job to come over to the new job that I have for them. So it's quite a challenge.
It's all about the benefits.
It's funny because one of the things we're seeing is salary is really not part of the equation so much. What we just discussed, frankly, was that if the salary is there, most people don't leave because they're not getting paid well enough. They leave for other reasons.
Yeah.
I'm not working on interesting things. That's probably one of the reasons. I'm not supported by my chain of command. I don't have somebody up above me looking out for me and helping me with my career development. Or I don't see an opportunity to really grow my skills in this environment. And so those are the things that we find that are hurting our ability to retain top talent.
Now, what are you finding that the CIOs are saying they need?
Well, you know, a lot of the conversation has been about, you know, transformation. Digital transformation is hot. You know, you kind of have the buzzwords that are out there already about big data. You know, everybody talks about big data. Not too many people really understand what big data is or what to do with it. Most of us complain, frankly, as CIOs, that we're paying to store data that we probably never will monetize. About 90% of the data that we collect and pay to store, we never touch. Right, and that's kind of across the board, across IT land. And so, you know, we're all hoping that there's some data whisperer out there that's going to come in and help us figure out how to monetize that. You know, you have the other side of the data is the analytics, right? So we're talking about data science, but truthfully, with IoT, Internet of Things, sensor data coming in, machine to machine, right? Then we've got mountains and mountains of data coming at us, tsunamis of data. No data analysts they're hard to find. Hard to find. And context is really important. I need data analysts that actually understand our business, understand the environment that we're in, the marketplace, and then can make meaningful data insights pop. Right? That's really hard to get. You know, coding. We talk a lot about coding, entry-level coding. Not too many people are actually hiring entry-level coders. The biggest companies have programs where they can go recruit and they're pulling people in, but everybody's looking for that same entry-level guy that actually has, or gal, that has 2 to 3 years of experience already, and we don't have to train them.
Right, because it's so hard when you need an engineer, need a developer. The ramp-up period of 3 or 4 months of just getting integrated with the existing team and databases, it's actually productivity lost in order to get productivity gained.
Right.
That's a hard challenge. And yeah, in my experience in technology, what we want is a full stack developer, but what we can afford is just somebody who specializes in Ruby on Rails or Java.
And that's interesting too, because one of the discussion points for these 2 sessions was really about how effective is our HR friend at helping us resolve the talent gap. I don't want to throw down on them necessarily, but we probably will eventually. And that's with regard to, they use the mechanism of, you've got a 4-year degree in computer science to define the entry-level criteria, right? The low bar is you've got a degree from a 4-year school. Therefore, we are trusting that because you got into that particular school, which is competitive, and you got out on time or within a couple years of on time, that you have the chops now to come in and be entry-level. What we're finding more and more is that that's really not true. The kids can't find jobs when they're coming out of school. They go to boot camps and they reskill almost immediately. So you're coming out of college, you got a 4-year degree, you got $35,000 worth of debt on average, and now I'm going to go spend $12,000 to $15,000 to boot camp myself to make myself more competitive to get a job, right? And I'm fighting for the very few jobs where I don't have to have any real experience. I can just come right out of college and matriculate to a job. Right, and that's why we're seeing a huge increase in the number of boot camps that are out there, and a lot of different flavors of those. Some of them are nonprofits where you don't pay any money. Some of them guarantee a job. Some of them don't. Some of them are very expensive propositions. $12,000 to $15,000 to get in. Some as expensive as $20,000 to get in. So if you've already got $35,000 or more of debt, and you go borrow mom's credit card for a few more thousand, what the heck?
She'll give it to you.
But mom and dad want to help, so they're probably going to pony up, and that's how this works, right? And so, like I said, there's just so much. And when you think about innovation, right, we've got a lot of innovation centers here. A lot of them are finding that it's relatively easy to attract talent, because the kids coming out of Georgia Tech or MIT or Carnegie Mellon, they want to work on the cutting edge stuff in an innovation center, and so that's an easy hire, frankly. One of the guys at the table today said, I got people beating down my door to get those jobs. What I don't have is people beating down the door to work on my COBOL stuff, right? And getting the college graduates that just came out of top tier programs to want to go over there and work on the legacy stuff, the technology debt that a lot of our big companies in the Atlanta community have, right? That's a real challenge, right? And then you've got you've got transformations that are going on. AT&T's going through a massive reskilling operation. Coca-Cola's doing some of that as well on a smaller scale, but still very big scale compared to a lot of other companies. Anthem is doing some of that as well, right? So as we start looking at, we've got people that are out there in the workforce now, but the technology is changing so much, so fast. I want to keep the people that know my culture and are valuable employees, but now I got to find ways to train them. And is that available through the technical colleges or the community colleges or the University System of Georgia? Or what are the other alternatives to reskilling my workforce that would allow me to be effective in retaining those people and at the same time know that I'm building for the future?
So that's fascinating. It's something we don't touch a lot on, but just like teachers and doctors have to have continuing education to stay up to date on the latest, people in positions of technology, is there a standard for having to stay up to date on the latest and greatest, or we're all just kind of individually tasked with being the best at what we know?
It's the general trend across the board is that we all kind of are slaves of Moore's law about processing power doubling about every 18 months, right? And so if you think about that Moore's law, we in IT know that the technology is going to continuously advance, and it's become our responsibility as individual contributors to stay up to date with those changes in technology. That's really hard if you're working on legacy COBOL in a big mainframe shop and you don't have any opportunity to go play in Angular Java or some of the new stuff that's really out there on the cutting edge. So the trend has been, it's up to us to define what our training needs are, hopefully access some training budget that pays for some of that. Most of the time, it's really us out on YouTube doing our own thing.
Yes.
Right. I think 47%, slide deck that I saw from Forrester not too long ago, 47% of all the active software developers today are self-taught.
Absolutely, and that's what's so fascinating to me. Thanks to Stack Exchange and GitHub and just so many tools that have come out of the need that is not yet filled by one blanket standard. But it also speaks to the entrepreneurial spirit and the dedication that this sort of talent set has to be self-motivated, to go beyond and learn more and be the best.
So that's an interesting point too, because one of the things we talked about today was this notion of, retaining the top talent. But what do you do with the people that are not the top talent, right? And if you've built a culture over a long period of time with your company where you're kind of like a family, and now all of a sudden we're dealing with the reality of, a lot of our family members are not able to move into this new technology world, right? They're all data center guys and we're shutting down all of our data centers, moving everything to the cloud, right? What do we do with those people, right? What's the loyalty aspect from the company to the employee, and backwards, right, from the employee to the company? We're seeing also a lot of the super talented folks that are going to go play in what they call the gig economy, right, where I'm just going to be a mercenary. I'm going to go to the person that'll pay me the most for my skills for a short period of time, and then because my skills are so hot and in demand, I'm not worried about the next gig. There's always going to be a next gig, right? And so you've got these two kind of tensions that are at war with each other. I've got to keep my cost low as the company. I've got to continuously ratchet out cost from my major cash delivery mechanisms and improve my margins over time. The competition compresses my margins over time. New startups that don't have my legacy debt are able to leapfrog over me. So this ratcheting of cost out and maybe losing some of my most valuable people over time, it's really hard. This is a very difficult environment for us as CIOs, as senior executives across the board, I'd say.
And what would you say about the increased need for the combination of UI and UX and product engineers to also be product designers?
Well, and my folks will tell you, I'm huge on systems design thinking. UI, UX is real near dear to my heart. As a matter of fact, in our business, I've said over and over again, we're either going to win or lose the war at the user experience. If we've got the best user experience in the mortgage industry, we win, even if our pricing is out of line. Even if we're not paying the most for our broker partners and we make it easy for them to access our tools and our services, we win. Because people are going to go there where it's easy for them to get their paycheck made. And so, that is a huge deficit though, because what we're seeing, my daughter is actually at SCAD down in Savannah.
Wow.
And what we're finding is that, big companies like Google, Pixar, all of these guys are recruiting the artists out of Savannah to come be their UI UX guys. And they have a curriculum down there, and one of her best friends is majoring in user experience, and it's awesome. What I'm surprised about is I was just down in Savannah picking her up, frankly, to bring her home for the summer. There's no UI UX business in Savannah. I'm thinking about starting one, to be honest with you, right?
That would be
because there's
very
just
smart.
You're right there, and there's some of the most creative, talented kids coming out of school, and yet, where does that live? Where do you go to get good UI UX? I mean, so what Google and Pixar and Disney and all these other guys are saying, Microsoft, is with money, right? They're investing literally into the campus, building out infrastructure to be able to access this talent, and they're hiring them right out of school and into high-paying jobs.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for my daughter, by the way.
Yeah,
right? This is great.
That was one of my questions I was going to ask, is if you had a son or daughter entering in this space in school, what would you tell them to major in?
UI UX is a great major. My son Caleb just graduated with a marketing degree. Very interested in sports marketing in particular, but he's already moving toward IT, right?
Yes.
Because marketing is almost all, that's why I have the title, to be honest with you. The reason I'm a CMO and a CIO, most marketing projects today are digital projects.
Absolutely.
Right? And even your direct mail and your traditional marketing has to have some traceability into the digital world in order for you to understand it. I'm actually going to give a talk up in Charlotte on Monday to a group of CIOs about this, because it seems like there's tension, right? I shouldn't be able to talk to myself the way I do, right? And so, but the truth is the alignment is all around the marketing need for data, lots and lots of data, fast.
Yes.
Right? And then the other side of that is the CIOs need to control change and make sure that we don't have any unanticipated, undocumented change, and we can roll back when the inevitable occurs.
Yep.
Right? That seems to be a conflict, right? But if you can get those two guys on the same page, or the two gals on the same page, all of a sudden you can resolve all of that, and IT can be a great partner to marketing to make sure they have that traceability aspect, which is huge, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so my son is already kind of moving in that direction. My oldest son went to UGA and is actually working in IT now out in San Diego with a company where he's a product manager slash support specialist. And he's doing really well. And then I've got one more son at home, and he wants to be a tennis player, so we're not talking about that just yet. And so, but the biggest challenge we have, frankly, is in the education world, I think, with regard to the talent gap. So if you think about what you just asked me, what I triggered on was I actually need to go way earlier than my high school graduate. I need to go to middle school. I need to make STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, very attractive to everybody that has an aptitude for it.
Yep.
I need to introduce this notion that some of the highest paid and unfilled open positions right now in our marketplace are in IT and information security. And so those kids need to know that while they're in the 6th to the 8th grade, so they can start to learn. One of the gentlemen at the session that I was just at said, if we could get high school kids that had 2 years of programming, we could put them into a $50,000 a year job right out of high school. They don't need 4 years of college.
It's a fundamental shift, but it's extremely necessary.
But my friends in education tell me that the biggest deficit for them is we don't have instructors that are passionate about science, technology, engineering, or math. Not to say that there aren't passionate people teaching, just there's not a lot of them that are passionate about it, that are making it compelling and interesting for our sons and daughters when they're in the 6th and the 8th grade. And so that deficit alone is really causing a lot of problems. Now, one of the great things, I want to add a plug for the governor's task force, right? One of the things that we have done that I think is powerful is we recognized there was a disincentive in the Hope Scholarship, Zell Miller Scholarship Program, right? Because if you come out of high school and you've got an aptitude for STEM, and you go into STEM classes at Georgia Tech or Georgia State or Kennesaw State, those are the hardest classes. And they're going to most likely be the ones that disrupt your grade point average and drop you out of that requirement for a B that you have to have. And so we've actually implemented policy that'll go into effect soon that gives you extra credit for getting the B or the C in those harder classes, right? So we've tried to remove some of the disincentive, because if you're afraid to take the class because it'll knock you out of your scholarship,
Yeah.
right? That's a tremendous disincentive.
It's a huge disincentive, and beyond having the teachers, having real-world experience, having more mentorship and internship opportunities for not just high school students, but middle school. Have them come and shadow and learn what the opportunities are and where they can, change the world, because effectively they can with the knowledge. Walt, as we close, I just want to thank you for your time. I know you are very busy, pulled in a lot of directions, especially with those two roles, dual roles, and being part of this task force. But I guess as we leave, I want to know how everybody out there watching, how can they help you? What do you need? How can we as a community of technologists and innovators in the city of Atlanta and beyond pour into what you're doing and help take you to the next level?
I'm kind of near the end of my career, to be honest with you, so I'm not sure that I need personal help. But from a broader perspective, if you've got kids that have an aptitude or an interest in any kind of science, technology, engineering, math, we urge you to just continue to kind of love them into the right career for the kids. Help them find the right programs, whether that's in their school or outside extracurricular, that'll help them. They're all kind of little coding camps that you can be participating in as early as 12 years old. And I think I would encourage all the moms and dads out there that are looking for their kids to have a great future. We've got great jobs. We've got very cool stuff to work on. We've got really fascinating opportunities in the next few years. And those kids are precious. They are absolutely little diamond mines, gold mines, jewels. And so we need to encourage them as much as we can to get into these right programs and then help them find their way. On the side of the business folks out there, go take a coding class yourself and see what it is that we do in IT and get more familiar, especially if you're a leader. You need to know what you're asking your IT team to do. There's not a big red easy button back in my shop that we just go push. A lot of this stuff is not as hard as we make it out to be sometimes either, but sometimes it is.
Right.
Right? And so what we need you to do is be more understanding of what real timelines can look like. We need leadership that understands that. We need people that will, I think, help us in another couple of ways, which is the long-term development aspects of every human being are really kind of an unmet need out there across the board. So one of the things we're experimenting with in the CIO community is direct outreach back into those middle schools and high schools, telling these stories about the kind of fun projects that we're doing and the kind of money that you can make in these career fields. And so, if you're one of those people and you would like to come talk, we'd love to have your voice represented in the middle schools and the high schools in the community all across Georgia. To help get those kids anchored into the potential for these opportunities. Those are the kinds of things that would be most helpful.
That's great. Thank you so much for your time and for all that you do and for being here. Thank you so much,
Thanks
Walt.
for having me. I really appreciate it.